Chosen ones, someone just admitted out loud that you are a psychological warfare master, and they are terrified of what that means. Right now, at this very moment, there are people in rooms with their therapists, their friends, their partners, trying to explain what you did to them without sounding completely unhinged. They're searching for words to describe how you got inside their head without saying a single aggressive word, how you dismantled their entire strategy without lifting a finger, how you made them expose themselves while you just stood there watching with that knowing look in your eyes. They finally said it, the words they've been avoiding for months, maybe years. You're not the victim in this story, you're the strategist. You're the chess master who was playing three-dimensional chess while they thought they had you cornered in checkers. And the most terrifying part for them is that you weren't even trying. You've spent your whole life being called too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive, too much. People labeled you dramatic when you called out their manipulation. They called you paranoid when you identified their tactics. They said you were reading too much into things when you predicted exactly how situations would unfold. But here's what really happened. They needed you to believe you were unstable, so they could continue operating in the shadows. They needed you to doubt your perception so their schemes would stay hidden. They needed you to question your own mind, because your mind was the only thing standing between them and total control. Every time you called out an inconsistency in their story, they accused you of being difficult. Every time you refused to accept their version of reality, they said you were impossible to deal with. Every time you held your ground against their pressure tactics, they told everyone you were the problem. And for a while, maybe you believed them. But something shifted recently. You stopped defending yourself against their accusations. You stopped trying to prove you weren't crazy. You stopped participating in their reality distortion field altogether, and that's when everything changed. See, manipulators depend on your emotional reaction to fuel their narrative. They need you to get upset so they can point at your emotions as evidence of your instability. They need you to defend yourself so they can twist your words into more ammunition. They need you to engage with their lies so they can keep the argument going in circles forever. But you stopped giving them anything to work with. You became emotionally unreachable. Not cold, not cruel, just completely neutral in the face of their provocations. And that neutrality destroyed everything they'd built. They came at you with the same tactics that had worked for years. The guilt trips that used to make you scramble to fix things. The silent treatment that used to make you anxious and apologetic. The subtle digs that used to trigger hours of self-doubt. The gaslighting that used to make you question what really happened. None of it worked anymore. You looked at them with clear eyes and calm energy, and suddenly they were the ones feeling uncomfortable. They were the ones scrambling to fill the silence. They were the ones over-explaining and contradicting themselves. You didn't have to say a word. Your energy said everything. You know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not playing this game anymore. Here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. The moment you stopped reacting, they started unraveling at a speed that shocked even you. Someone who always had the perfect excuse suddenly couldn't keep their lies straight. Someone who was always so composed started making mistakes in front of witnesses. Someone who prided themselves on being several steps ahead started tripping over their own stories. You watched it happen in real time. The mask cracking, the facade crumbling, the performance falling apart. And the wildest part is, you didn't cause it. You just stopped holding up your end of their dysfunction. You stopped being the emotional dumping ground. You stopped being the scapegoat they projected all their shame onto. You stopped being the character they cast you as in their twisted narrative. And without you playing your assigned role, their whole production collapsed. They started reaching out to mutual connections trying to get information about you. What's going on with them? Why are they acting different? Did they say anything about me? The desperation was palpable. Because people who manipulate need to know what you're thinking so they can stay ahead of your moves. They need to predict your reactions so they can craft their responses. They need to understand your emotional state so they can exploit it. But you gave them nothing. Radio silence on the emotional frequency they'd been monitoring for years. Complete information blackout on your internal world. total mystery where they used to have access, and that mystery drove them absolutely insane with anxiety. Here's something most people don't understand about psychological warfare. The person who cares less has all the power, not because they're cruel or heartless, but because they're no longer invested in controlling the outcome. They've released attachment to being understood, being validated, being proven right. They've surrendered the need to make the other person see their perspective. They've let go of hoping the relationship will magically become healthy. And that detachment is the most powerful position you can occupy, because suddenly all the weapons that used to work against you are completely useless. If this message is resonating with your spirit right now, hype this video so other chosen ones walking this same path can find it. Someone close to you has been running their mouth lately, not just casual conversation, full-blown confessionals about how they underestimated you, how they thought they had you figured out, how they believed their plan was foolproof, how they were absolutely certain you'd never see through their performance. They're telling people about specific moments when they realized you were 10 steps ahead of where they thought you were. That time they tried to manipulate you and you responded in a way that showed you'd predicted their exact move. That conversation where they attempted to gaslight you and you calmly stated facts that proved you'd been documenting everything. That situation where they set a trap and you walked around it so smoothly they knew you'd seen it coming from miles away. They're admitting now that every move they made was being countered by someone who understood the game better than they did. Let me tell you what's really happening here. You're not good at psychological warfare because you're manipulative or calculating in the toxic sense. You're a master of it because you've been forced to develop these skills for survival. You grew up in environments where reading energy was a matter of emotional safety, where predicting behavior kept you ahead of danger, where understanding unspoken dynamics helped you navigate family systems that were fundamentally dysfunctional. You learned psychological warfare the same way soldiers learned combat, through necessity, through immersion, through having no other choice but to become excellent at reading the battlefield. Every toxic relationship you survived taught you new tactics. Every narcissist you encountered showed you new manipulation methods. Every betrayal revealed new patterns you filed away for future reference. You didn't study psychology in school. You studied it in the trenches of human dysfunction. And that real-world education made you someone who sees things other people miss. You notice micro-expressions that last half a second. You catch tonal shifts that others don't register. You sense energy changes before they become obvious behaviors. You recognize patterns that predict outcomes with stunning accuracy. You connect dots between seemingly unrelated events that reveal the full picture. You hear what's not being said louder than the actual words. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition developed through years of being forced to stay hyper-vigilant in unsafe environments. And now that you're in a position where you're using these skills consciously rather than reactively, you've become unstoppable. Someone who thought they were manipulating you is now sitting with the horrifying realization that you were allowing them to think they were winning, while documenting everything, while building your case, while preparing your exit, while protecting your assets, while creating distance they didn't even notice until it was too late. You knew exactly what they were doing from day one. The love bombing that was too intense, too fast. The way they isolated you from support systems under the guise of wanting alone time. How they tested your boundaries with small violations before escalating. The triangulation with other people to make you jealous and insecure. The intermittent reinforcement that kept you hooked on breadcrumbs. The projection of their own behavior onto you through accusation. The gaslighting about events you clearly remembered. Every single manipulation tactic in the narcissist handbook. You saw it, you named it internally, and you made a strategic decision to play along just long enough to gather the information you needed. Not for revenge, not to hurt them back, but to understand exactly who you were dealing with so you could protect yourself effectively. They thought your kindness was naivety. They mistook your patience for weakness. They confused your silence with ignorance. Classic mistakes that people who underestimate empaths always make, because they don't understand that the quietest people in the room are often the ones seeing everything. The ones who seem passive are often the ones running calculations that would blow your mind. The ones who appear soft are often protected by boundaries made of reinforced steel that just happen to be invisible until you crash into them. You let them talk. You let them perform. You let them think their manipulation was working, and while they were busy congratulating themselves on how well they were controlling you, you were gathering data, recognizing patterns, and building a psychological profile of exactly who they were. By the time you made your move, you knew them better than they knew themselves, and that's what's freaking them out now. The admission didn't come easy. First, there was denial. You're not that smart, you just got lucky, you're reading too much into this. Classic defensive responses from someone who can't handle being outplayed. Then came the anger phase. Accusations that you're manipulative, claims that you're the toxic one, projection of their own tactics onto you. The smear campaign, trying to convince others that you're the villain. Standard procedure when a manipulator's cover is blown. But something interesting happened with this person. Somewhere in the middle of their defensive spiral, they had a moment of honest self-reflection. Maybe in therapy, maybe during a breakdown, maybe in a conversation with someone who could see through their nonsense. And they said it out loud. The thing they'd been avoiding admitting because it shattered their entire self-perceiving. You're a psychological warfare master, and they never stood a chance. This admission is circulating now. Other people heard it. People who were fed lies about you are now getting a completely different story. People who were told you were the unstable one are hearing how you systematically dismantled someone's manipulation with surgical precision. People who were convinced you were the problem are discovering you were the one person in the situation who had complete clarity the whole time. The narrative is shifting. Not because you're defending yourself, not because you're telling your side of the story, but because the truth has a way of emerging when people stop feeding lies the energy they need to survive. And the truth in this case is absolutely devastating to the reputation they tried so hard to build. Here's what they're saying now behind closed doors. You never lost your composure, even when they were actively trying to trigger you. You responded to chaos with calculated calm that made them look unhinged by comparison. You documented everything while they assumed you were too emotional to be strategic. You built alliances with people they tried to turn against you by simply being authentic while they were performing. You protected your resources while they were planning how to drain them. You maintained boundaries while they were testing for weaknesses. You played the long game while they were chasing short-term victories. Every move you made was strategic, even when it looked like you were just being kind or patient or understanding. You were always 3 steps ahead. You were always controlling the narrative. You were always the one with the power. They just couldn't see it until they'd already lost. This is the part that's keeping them up at night. The realization that you weren't reacting to them at all. You were directing the entire interaction toward an outcome you'd already decided on. They thought they were pushing your buttons. You were letting them push buttons that did absolutely nothing while protecting the ones that actually mattered. They thought they were getting under your skin. You were studying their tactics to recognize them faster next time. They thought they were winning. You were already gone emotionally, just waiting for the right moment to exit physically. The level of self-control this requires is something most people can't comprehend. The amount of emotional regulation, the constant self-awareness, the strategic thinking even in the middle of conflict. The ability to separate your reactive self from your conscious self and let your conscious self stay in control. This is master-level emotional intelligence combined with street-smart survival skills. And they just told everyone you have it. Now here's where this gets really interesting. Once someone admits out loud that you're a psychological warfare master, it changes how everyone sees both of you. People start replaying past interactions through a new lens. That time you stayed calm during that argument suddenly looks like tactical emotional regulation. That moment you walked away from drama suddenly looks like strategic disengagement. That period where you went silent suddenly looks like information control. Everything you did that seemed passive or weak or confused in the moment gets reframed as calculated strategy. And everything they did that seemed powerful or confident or in control suddenly looks like flailing against someone who was letting them wear themselves out. The power dynamic retroactively shifts in everyone's memory of events. People who witnessed your interactions are now having conversations about moments they didn't understand at the time. Why did you smile when they said that cruel thing? Because you knew it revealed more about them than it hurt you. Why did you agree so easily to that unreasonable demand? Because you were already planning your exit and didn't need to fight battles that didn't matter. Why did you seem so unbothered by their provocation? Because you recognized it as a tactic and refused to give it power. Every single thing that made you look weak in the moment is being reinterpreted as strength, and every single thing that made them look strong is being revealed as desperate attempts to control someone who was never actually under their control. The narrative is completely flipping, and you didn't have to say a single word to make it happen. Other people in their life are starting to see patterns now. That person who thought they were special and different in this person's life is realizing they're getting the same treatment you got, same manipulation tactics, same gaslighting phrases, same cycle of love bombing and devaluation. The person who replaced you in their attention is now going through exactly what you went through. And because you've already been labeled as the psychological warfare master who saw through their game, people are watching this new situation with completely different eyes. They're not falling for the lies about the new person being difficult or crazy. They're recognizing the pattern. And that recognition is destroying this manipulator's ability to operate. You broke the spell for everyone, not just for yourself. Someone who used to enable this person's behavior is now pulling back. Someone who defended them against your accusations is now apologizing for not believing you. Someone who participated in the smear campaign against you is now admitting they were manipulated into it. The house of cards is falling. Not because you're pushing it over, because you removed yourself from the foundation, and the whole structure was only standing because you were holding it up. All those years you thought you were the problem. You were actually the solution, holding together something that should have collapsed years ago. And now that you're gone, reality is catching up with everyone who was living in the illusion this person created. The confession that you're a psychological warfare master isn't just an admission about you. It's an admission that their entire reality was fake, and you were the only one who knew it. Here's something that needs to be said clearly. Being a psychological warfare master doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a survivor who learned to think strategically in environments where emotional reactivity would have destroyed you. You're not manipulative in the toxic sense. You're perceptive. You're not calculating in a cold way. You're protective of your energy and resources. You're not playing games. You're refusing to be played. There's a massive difference between someone who uses psychological tactics to harm others and someone who understands psychological dynamics to protect themselves. You're in the second category. Everything you've done has been in service of your own well-being and freedom, not to destroy someone else, but to free yourself from destruction. The people calling you manipulative now are the ones who are angry that their manipulation stopped working. The ones saying you're cold are upset that your emotions are no longer accessible for them to exploit. The ones claiming you're calculating are frustrated that you're no longer making decisions based on guilt and obligation. Every accusation they're throwing at you is actually a confession of what they're upset they can no longer do to you. They're not mad that you're a psychological warfare master. They're mad that you use those skills to escape their control. They're not concerned about your tactics. They're panicking because their tactics no longer work. The whole victim performance they're putting on right now is just another manipulation attempt, and the fact that you can see it so clearly proves everything they admitted about your abilities. Your ancestors are celebrating right now in the spiritual realm. Every single person in your bloodline who dealt with similar dynamics and didn't have the awareness to escape is cheering you on. You're breaking generational curses just by seeing clearly and choosing differently. You're ending patterns that have plagued your family for lifetimes. You're modeling for future generations what it looks like to love yourself enough to walk away from situations that diminish you. This isn't just about your personal victory. This is about healing that ripples backward and forward through time. Your children, if you have them or will have them, won't grow up learning to accept manipulation as love. They'll grow up watching you maintain boundaries with grace. They'll see you choose peace over chaos. They'll learn that walking away is sometimes the most powerful move you can make. Right now, there are multiple people who are relieved you're finally being recognized for who you really are. People who always knew you were brilliant but couldn't say it because the manipulator had social control. People who witnessed your strength but had to stay quiet to avoid becoming targets themselves. People who saw through the lies but didn't have the standing to call them out. These people are speaking up now, confirming your version of events, validating your perceptions, adding their own observations that support everything you knew but couldn't prove. You're not alone in this anymore. The truth is building momentum, and it's getting louder every day. The admission that you're a psychological warfare master opened a door that can't be closed. Other truths are flooding through, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. They're waiting for you to retaliate. They're bracing for the revenge they're certain is coming. They know you have ammunition now. They know you have witnesses. They know you have documentation. They know you could destroy their reputation completely if you wanted to, and they're terrified. Because if the roles were reversed, they absolutely would be launching a full-scale attack right now. They'd be telling everyone who would listen. They'd be exposing every secret. They'd be burning bridges and salting the earth. That's how they operate. That's their playbook. So they're certain that's what you're planning. They're losing sleep over it. They're preemptively defending themselves to people. They're crafting narratives about how if you say anything about them, you're lying or exaggerating or being vindictive. But here's what's absolutely destroying them. You're not doing any of it. You're not talking about them obsessively. You're not warning everyone who will listen. You're not exposing their secrets on social media. You're not seeking revenge at all. You're just living your life, moving forward, building something new, healing, growing, thriving. And your silence is so much more powerful than any call-out post could ever be. Because when they tell people you're going to come after them and then you don't, it makes them look paranoid and guilty. When they claim you're obsessed with destroying them and you're clearly focused on your own path, their narrative falls apart. When they paint you as vindictive and you respond with grace and boundaries, everyone can see who the real problem was. Your refusal to engage in the mudslinging they're expecting is the most sophisticated psychological move you could make. And it's completely unintentional. You're not doing it to be strategic. You're doing it because you genuinely don't care about them anymore. This is the part they can't comprehend. How someone could go from being so invested in the relationship to being completely indifferent. How you could walk away without looking back. How you could release them so completely that you're not even interested in watching them struggle. They're used to people who are either attached or hostile, love or hate, investment or resentment. But you're in a completely different space, neutral, free, unaffected, and that space is unreachable for them. They can't manipulate indifference. They can't gaslight detachment. They can't guilt-trip someone who has genuinely moved on. Every tactic they try just makes them look more unstable, while you remain calm and centered. The contrast is stark. And everyone who's paying attention can see exactly who the psychological warfare master actually is. People are asking them why they're still so focused on you if you were the problem. If you were so terrible, why are they still talking about you months or years after you left? If they're so relieved you're gone, Why do they seem so bothered by your peace? The questions are starting to pile up. The inconsistencies in their story are becoming obvious. The fact that you're thriving while they're spiraling is telling everyone exactly what they need to know about who was toxic in this dynamic. You don't have to defend yourself. Your life is your defense. Your peace is your testimony. Your growth is your evidence. Everything you're building in your new reality speaks louder than any words you could say about the past, and they're watching it all unfold with the sickening realization that they lost someone irreplaceable while you lost someone replaceable. The tables have turned so completely that the reversal itself is poetic justice. Now let me tell you what's coming next, because this is important. The admission that you're a psychological warfare master is going to reach more people. It's going to become part of how you're understood in your social circles, and that's actually going to work in your favor in ways you haven't anticipated yet. People are going to approach you differently now, with more respect, more caution, more genuine interest. They're going to realize that you're someone who sees through facades, someone who can't be manipulated, someone who values authenticity over performance. And the beautiful thing is, this will filter your connections automatically. People who operate with manipulation will stay away from you. They'll sense that you're someone who would see through their games immediately. And people who value real connection will be drawn to you because they'll recognize that you create safe space for truth. You're going to attract a completely different caliber of relationships moving forward. People who have done their own healing work, people who communicate directly instead of through games, people who respect boundaries, people who take accountability, people who choose growth over comfort. Your energy has shifted so dramatically that you're no longer a match for the dysfunction that used to surround you. You've upgraded your frequency, and the universe is rearranging your reality to match your new vibration. Opportunities are opening up that would never have been accessible when you were entangled in toxic dynamics. Doors are appearing that only become visible when you're standing in your power. Resources are flowing that only come when you're no longer leaking energy into dysfunction. Someone new is coming into your life very soon. Someone who has also mastered psychological warfare through their own survival journey. Someone who will recognize your strength instead of being threatened by it. Someone who will appreciate your perception instead of calling it paranoia. Someone who will value your boundaries instead of testing them. This person has been through their own version of what you experienced. They've done the work, they've healed the wounds, they've learned the lessons, and they're ready for the kind of connection that's only possible between two people who know themselves completely. No games, no manipulation, no hidden agendas, just two warriors who respect each other's journey and choose to build something real together. This connection is part of your reward for doing the hard work of walking away from what was comfortable but toxic. Your career or life purpose is about to shift as well. The skills you developed through psychological warfare are going to translate into your work in powerful ways. Reading people, understanding dynamics, seeing patterns, strategic thinking, emotional regulation. These aren't just survival skills, these are leadership skills. These are negotiation skills. These are entrepreneurial skills. What you learned in the trenches of dysfunction is going to become your competitive advantage in whatever field you choose to pursue. You're going to find yourself in positions where your ability to see what others miss becomes invaluable, where your strategic mind becomes an asset, where your emotional intelligence becomes your superpower. The universe doesn't waste anything. Every painful lesson you learnt is about to pay dividends in ways that will blow your mind. But let me give you a warning, because this is crucial. As your reputation as a psychological warfare master spreads, some people are going to try to test you. They're going to want to see if it's true. They're going to poke at your boundaries to see if you're really as unshakable as people say. They're going to try to trigger you to see if you're actually as regulated as you appear. These are wounded people who are threatened by others who have their power. People who need to believe everyone is as manipulatable as they are. People who can't handle the existence of someone who sees through their tactics. Don't engage with these tests. Don't prove anything to anyone. Just maintain your boundaries and let them exhaust themselves against your calm. Their attempts to rattle you will only prove everything that's been said about your abilities. Also be aware that the person who admitted you're a psychological warfare master might attempt to reclaim the narrative. They might try to twist their confession into a victim story about how they're the one who was actually manipulated. They might attempt to paint your strategic thinking as abuse. They might try to convince others that your ability to see through their games means you're the real manipulator. This is predictable behavior from someone who can't handle being outplayed. They need to regain the upper hand, even if it's just in their own mind. Don't waste energy defending yourself against these new lies. The people who matter already see the truth. The people who don't aren't your concern anymore. Focus on building your new life, not on correcting misperceptions in your old one. There will be moments when you're tempted to use your psychological warfare skills offensively instead of defensively. Moments when you could absolutely destroy someone with what you know about human behavior. Moments when you could manipulate a situation to your advantage. Moments when you could play people like chess pieces. Resist these temptations. The difference between you and the people who tried to control you is that you choose not to use your power to harm others. You use it to protect yourself and create healthy boundaries. You use it to see clearly and make informed decisions. You use it to build authentic connections with people who've earned your trust. The moment you start using these skills to control or harm others is the moment you become what you escaped from. Stay in your integrity. Your power is meant for protection and discernment, not domination and destruction. Some people in your life are going to become uncomfortable with your newfound confidence. They're going to miss the version of you who second-guessed yourself, who needed their validation, who looked to them for approval, who could be guilt-tripped and manipulated. These people are going to try to pull you back into old dynamics by suggesting you've changed in negative ways. You're too confident now. You're too independent. You're too selective about who you let close. These comments are attempts to make you small again, to make you doubt the growth you've achieved, to pull you back into the version of yourself that was easier for them to control. See these attempts for what they are: manipulation masked as concern, control disguised as care, and keep moving forward into the powerful, boundaried, clear-seeing person you've become. Now comes the integration phase, where you stop seeing yourself through the lens of trauma and start seeing yourself through the lens of mastery. For so long you've defined yourself by what was done to you, the betrayals you survived, the manipulation you endured, the gaslighting you overcame, and those experiences are part of your story, but they're not the whole story. The whole story includes the brilliance you developed in response to those challenges, the strategic mind you cultivated, the emotional intelligence you refined, the perceptiveness you honed, the strength you built. You're not just a survivor, you're a master, and it's time to own that identity fully. This means changing how you talk about your past, not hiding it, not pretending it didn't happen, but framing it as the training ground that made you who you are today. Every toxic person you encountered was a teacher showing you what to avoid. Every manipulation tactic you experienced was a lesson in human psychology. Every betrayal was an opportunity to strengthen your discernment. Every gaslighting attempt was practice in trusting your own perception. You've essentially received a PhD in human behavior without ever setting foot in a classroom, and that education has value, real, practical, applicable value that you can use for the rest of your life. Stop minimizing what you've learned. Stop downplaying your abilities. You are exceptionally skilled at reading people and situations. Own it. This also means being selective about who you share your full story with. Not everyone deserves to know the details of your journey. Not everyone has the capacity to hold your truth with the respect it deserves. Not everyone will understand the complexity of what you survived and how you survived it. Some people will hear your story and try to find fault with your actions. Some will suggest you're exaggerating or being dramatic. Some will use your vulnerability against you. Be strategic about who gets access to your inner world. Share your experiences with people who have proven they can hold space for complexity. People who understand that survival sometimes requires tactics that look questionable to people who've never had to fight for their sanity. People who recognize that you did what you had to do to protect yourself, and there's no shame in that. You're entering a new chapter now, one where you're not running from dysfunction, but running toward purpose. Where you're not defending yourself against attacks, but building something meaningful. Where you're not focused on who wronged you, but on who you're becoming. This chapter is going to require different skills than the last one, less about warfare and more about creation, less about protection and more about expansion, less about survival and more about thriving. You still have all the strategic thinking and perceptiveness you developed, but now you get to use those skills in positive ways, building businesses, creating art, helping others, teaching what you've learned, contributing to the world in ways that matter. The warfare phase is ending, the building phase is beginning, and you're more prepared for it than you could possibly know. Years from now, people are going to tell stories about you. About the person who stayed calm when everyone expected them to break. About the person who played the long game when others were seeking instant gratification. About the person who walked away with grace when they could have burned everything down. About the psychological warfare master who chose to use their power for good instead of destruction. These stories are going to inspire others who are currently in the situations you escaped from. They're going to give hope to people who think they'll never break free. They're going to show a different way forward for people who are tired of fighting. Your life is becoming a blueprint for conscious evolution in the face of toxicity. The people you're going to impact most profoundly are the ones you haven't even met yet. The future connections, the children who will grow up with different models of relationship health, the colleagues who will learn from your leadership style, the friends who will experience what authentic connection actually feels like, the romantic partners who will be loved by someone who knows the difference between intensity and intimacy. You've been through the fire and you came out refined instead of destroyed. That refinement is going to touch every single person who crosses your path from this point forward, not because you're trying to teach them, but because your energy carries the frequency of truth and freedom, and that frequency is contagious to anyone ready to receive it. Some of you reading this are meant to share your story more publicly, through writing, through speaking, through creating content that reaches people beyond your immediate circle. There's a book in you, or a podcast, or a coaching program, or a workshop. Something that takes the hard-won wisdom from your journey and makes it accessible to others who need it. You've been hesitant to step into this visibility because you're afraid of being judged, afraid of people from your past twisting your words, afraid of being vulnerable on that scale. But the universe is pushing you toward this calling because your story has the power to shift consciousness, to wake people up to their own manipulation, to give them permission to trust their perception, to show them that walking away is not only possible, but necessary. Your visibility is part of your purpose, and it's time to stop hiding. Others reading this are meant to work more quietly behind the scenes. Your impact is going to be felt in your immediate circles, in your family, in your workplace, in your community. You're not meant for a large platform. You're meant to be the person people call when they're struggling, the safe space where truth is honored, the example of what healthy looks like in a world full of dysfunction. Your legacy is going to be measured in changed lives, in children who grow up with better models, in friends who learn to set boundaries by watching you, in partners who experience real love because you showed them it exists. Both paths are equally valuable. Both paths are necessary. Figure out which one is yours and commit to it fully. The world needs your medicine in whatever form it's meant to take. There's one more thing that needs to be addressed. The person who admitted you're a psychological warfare master is going to face their own reckoning soon. Not because you're orchestrating it, but because life has a way of making people face the truth about themselves eventually. They're going to hit a point where they can no longer avoid looking at their own behavior, where the consequences of their actions catch up with them, where the people they manipulated stop enabling, where the facade they've been maintaining becomes too exhausting to keep up. And in that moment, they're going to remember you. How you tried to show them, how you offered them chances to change, how you gave them more grace than they deserved. And they're going to realize they had something real with you and they destroyed it. This realization is going to hit them hard, harder than anything you could say or do to them, because it's going to come from within. Self-inflicted truth is always more devastating than external criticism. They're going to want to reach out, to apologize, to explain, to ask for another chance. And you need to decide right now, before that moment comes, how you're going to respond. Some of you will choose to maintain no contact, to let them face their consequences without your involvement, to keep the door closed because you know reopening it would only create more pain. Others will choose conditional reconnection, setting clear boundaries about what you will and won't tolerate, making it clear that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or returning to old dynamics. Both choices are valid. Both require strength. Choose based on what serves your peace, not their redemption. What's non-negotiable is this: don't take responsibility for their healing. Don't try to save them from their consequences. Don't make their awakening your project. You did your part by surviving and thriving. You showed them what healthy looks like by becoming it. You held up a mirror by refusing to participate in their dysfunction. That's all you were required to do. Their growth is their responsibility. Their healing is their work. Their transformation is between them and their own soul. You're not their therapist. You're not their mother. You're not their savior. You're someone who got free. And freedom means you're no longer responsible for fixing people who broke themselves by trying to break you. Let them find their own way. You found yours. The reckoning isn't just coming for them. It's coming for everyone who participated in your marginalization. The people who believed lies about you without asking for your side. The ones who joined in the character assassination. The ones who remained silent when they knew better. The ones who chose the manipulator's favor over your friendship. Every single person who played a role in your isolation is going to be confronted with the truth at some point. Some will feel guilt and seek to make amends. Others will double down and justify their choices. Most will simply fade away quietly when they realize they were on the wrong side of history. You don't need to chase these reckonings. You don't need to force acknowledgement. You don't need apologies to move forward. The truth will speak for itself in its own time. Your job is simply to keep walking your path with integrity and let karma handle the rest. This is the part where you fully claim your identity as a psychological warfare master without shame or qualification. Not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded, confident way that honors what you've overcome and what you've become. You are brilliant at reading people. You are exceptionally skilled at understanding dynamics. You are masterful at protecting your energy while navigating complex social situations. You are strategic in your thinking and decisive in your actions. You are someone who sees patterns others miss, who understands motivations before they're spoken, who predicts outcomes with startling accuracy. These are your gifts, your superpowers, your edge, and there's no reason to downplay them anymore. When someone says something about you now, you don't need to defend or deny. You can simply smile with that knowing look and say thank you, because yes, You are exactly what they said. And you're not sorry about it. You're not sorry for being hard to manipulate. You're not sorry for seeing through games. You're not sorry for protecting yourself skillfully. You're not sorry for being 10 steps ahead. You're not sorry for making choices that prioritize your well-being over other people's comfort. The era of apologizing for your strength is over. The era of making yourself smaller to make others comfortable is done. You're stepping fully into your power now, and anyone who has a problem with that isn't someone who belongs in your future anyway. This claiming extends to how you present yourself in the world, the confidence you carry, the standards you set, the boundaries you enforce, the vision you pursue. You're done second-guessing yourself, done seeking external validation, done waiting for permission to be who you are. You know who you are now. You know what you're capable of. You know what you deserve. And you're going to move through life with the unshakable certainty of someone who has faced their worst fears and survived. Someone who has been tested in ways most people never will be. Someone who has earned their confidence through real-world experience. Not theory, not imagination, not fake it till you make it, but actual mastery developed through trial by fire. The claiming also means rewriting your internal narrative, those voices in your head that say you're too much or not enough, that tell you you're being paranoid when you're being perceptive, that suggest you should give people more chances when you've already given too many. Those voices are old programming from people who needed you to doubt yourself. They're not your authentic voice. Your authentic voice is the one that guided you to freedom, that told you to trust your instincts, that warned you when something was off, that helped you leave when leaving felt impossible. That voice is your truth. And from now on, that's the only voice you're listening to. Every other voice can be acknowledged as old conditioning and then dismissed. You're the authority on your own life now, not your past, not your wounds, not the people who tried to control you, just you. Something is activating in you right now as you read this. A recognition, a remembering, a shift into a new version of yourself that you've been becoming for years but haven't fully embodied until this moment. The admission that you're a psychological warfare master was the external validation that's allowing you to finally own internally what you've always known but were afraid to claim. You're not like other people. You never have been. You see things they don't see. You understand things they don't understand. You navigate complexity they can't even perceive. And that's not arrogance. That's just truth. A truth you're finally ready to live from. This activation is going to change how you move through the world. You're going to trust your first impressions more. You're going to honor your intuition without needing to explain it. You're going to make decisions faster because you'll recognize patterns immediately. You're going to set boundaries earlier because you'll see red flags at first glance. You're going to walk away quicker when things don't align. You're going to say no without guilt when opportunities aren't right for you. You're going to surround yourself with people who match your energy instead of trying to raise people to your level. You're going to operate from overflow instead of depletion. You're going to expect respect instead of hoping for it. Everything is about to get easier because you're finally playing at your actual level instead of playing down to make others comfortable. The shake. The activation is also going to reveal new gifts you didn't know you had. Enhanced intuition that borders on precognition, ability to influence outcomes without force, magnetic presence that attracts opportunities, capacity to manifest rapidly, protection that's almost supernatural, connection to guidance that's eerily accurate. These aren't woo-woo concepts. These are natural abilities that emerge when someone fully steps into their power, when you're no longer leaking energy into dysfunction, when you're no longer dimming your light to fit in, when you're no longer doubting your perception, when you're no longer playing small. All that energy that was being wasted on survival is now available for creation, and the universe responds to that shift immediately, with support, resources, and synchronicities that feel like miracles. People are going to ask you how you did it, how you transformed so completely, how you went from surviving to thriving so quickly, how you developed such clarity and confidence. And you're going to struggle to explain it at first. Because the truth is, you didn't do anything, except stop doing the things that were keeping you small. You stopped defending yourself against false accusations. You stopped trying to make toxic people see your value. You stopped participating in dynamics that drained you. You stopped accepting crumbs. You stopped making excuses for poor behavior. You stopped believing you were the problem. You didn't add anything new. You subtracted everything that wasn't serving you. And what was left was your natural state of power, which was always there, just buried under years of conditioning and trauma. The transformation isn't becoming someone new. It's returning to who you've always been. So here's my declaration to you, Chosen One. You are a psychological warfare master. Own it, claim it, live it. Use those skills to protect yourself, build your empire, and create the life you deserve. Stop apologizing for seeing clearly. Stop pretending you don't notice things you absolutely notice. Stop playing dumb to make others comfortable. You're brilliant, you're strategic, you're powerful, and the world needs you to step fully into that truth, not so you can dominate others, but so you can liberate yourself and show others what's possible when you refuse to be controlled. Your freedom is your activism. Your clarity is your gift. Your boundaries are your legacy. The person who admitted you're a psychological warfare master did you a favor, even though they didn't mean to. They named something you needed permission to claim. They validated what you've known, but were afraid to speak. They set in motion a series of events that's going to catapult you into your next chapter. So in a twisted way, be grateful. Not for the pain they caused, but for the strength you developed in response, not for their manipulation, but for the mastery you cultivated through resisting it. Not for their betrayal, but for the clarity that betrayal provided. They were an unwitting participant in your evolution, and now their role in your story is complete. What comes next is yours to write. No more villains to defeat, no more battles to fight, no more wars to wage, just a life to build, dreams to pursue, purpose to fulfill, joy to experience, love to create, peace to protect. You've graduated from the warfare phase. You're entering the abundance phase, and everything you learned in the valley is going to serve you on the mountain. The skills that kept you alive are going to help you thrive. The perception that protected you is going to guide you to opportunities. The boundaries that freed you are going to attract the right people. The strength you developed is going to support the weight of your success. Nothing was wasted. Everything served a purpose. And now you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your season. The admission that you're a psychological warfare master was the starting gun for your new life. The old chapter is closed. The new one is opening. And it's going to be better than anything you've imagined, because you're entering it as the fullest, most powerful, most authentic version of yourself. No more hiding. No more playing small. No more apologizing for your gifts. Just pure, unapologetic, magnificent you. Operating at full capacity, living at your edge, claiming your power, and showing the world what a psychological warfare master looks like when they use their skills for good. Welcome to your throne, Chosen One. You've earned every inch of it. Now sit down, get comfortable, and watch how the universe responds when you finally own who you are.